According to this standard, a mature Christian is one who is not a spiritual babe, often changeable and easily led astray or influenced by others in matters of doctrine. F4. 11-14 Since his perceptive powers are trained, he is able to distinguish both right and wrong. He does not need to be taught elementary things. Heb 5. 11. 6. 2 He is guided, not by worldly wisdom, but by God's Spirit. 1 Co 2. 6, 10-13, FTN. Never does the Bible speak about degrees or stages of spiritual maturity or adulthood. However, just as a person continues to grow in knowledge, experience, and discernment after becoming an adult, the mature Christian likewise continues to make progress. Trials that he has can strengthen his faith and endurance. Wrote the disciple James. Consider it all joy, my brothers, when you meet with various trials, knowing as you do that this tested quality of your faith works out endurance. But let endurance have its work complete, that you may be complete literally, perfect and sound in all respects, not lacking in anything. Ches 1. 2-4 Similarly, as adults will vary in physical aspects and in mental abilities and talents, so mature Christians may vary in certain qualities, some being notable in some aspect, such as knowledge, judgment, courage, or generosity. Others in another. Compare 1 Co 7. 7. 12. 4-11, 27-31. Thus, in considering maturity, it is necessary to take into consideration that special abilities or talents are not the things that determine whether one is a mature Christian or not. The entire congregational arrangement, with its apostles, prophets, evangelizers, shepherds, and teachers, served to produce mature Christians, spiritual adults. F4. 11-14. Compare Col 1. 28, 29. 4. 12, 13. Obviously, then, those serving as shepherds and teachers had to be spiritually mature persons, not babes. However, more than spiritual adulthood was required of one appointed as an overseer or a ministerial servant. 1t3. 1-9, 12, 13. Tito textoi acute miritra longo, me 356 its sons, can you conduct them? Thus, whatever the identification of these particular constellations may be, God puts the question to Job whether he can control the visible celestial bodies, bringing forth a certain group at its proper season or guiding another constellation in its prescribed heavenly course. Mia. Seed tower. Meal. Often occasions of happy fellowship and spiritual benefit among the ancient Hebrews and, later, the early Christians. Meals also afforded opportunities for showing love and extending hospitality to others. It appears that the Hebrews and early Christians customarily offered prayers in connection with meals. 1-9. 13. Act 27. 35. 1-4. 1-3. See hospitality. Lord's evening meal. Love feasts. The Israelites appear to have had two main meals each day, one in the morning and the other in the evening at the close of the workday. Compare 3. 2, 3, 7. 1 Kai 17. 6. While many ate their breakfasts at home, others, including fishermen who toiled all night, apparently made it a practice to take some food along when going to work. Fishermen could also prepare some of their catch for breakfast. Compare Mr. 8. 14. Joe 21. 12, 15. There is evidence, however, that a meal, perhaps usually a lighter one, was served about noon. Act 10. 9, 10 Probably at this time persons working in the field stopped to rest and ate some food. Compare 2. 14. Women customarily served the food. Joe 12. 1-3 But at times they ate their meals in company with man. 1-1. 4, 5. Job 1. 4 In well-to-do, particularly royal, household servants waited on the tables. King Solomon's table was served by waiters having special attire. 1 Kai 10. 4, 5. 2 Ch 9. 3, 4. Drinks were usually served in individual cups, but food was often placed in a common dish. Those eating might take food with their fingers or use a piece of bread somewhat like a spoon to partake of certain foods. Mr. 14. 20. Joe 13. 25, 26. See also PR 26. 15. The postures assumed by persons at meals included reclining and sitting. G 18. 4. 27. 19. JG 19. 6. Lu 9. 14. A relief from the palace of Assyrian king Ashurbanipal depicts him as reclining on a couch and his queen as seated on an elevated chair while feasting. Reclining on couches at meals was apparently also a practice among the Persians. As 7. 8 tables and couches were used at least by some Israelites in Ezekiel's time. As 23. 41. During the time of Jesus' earthly ministry. The general Hebrew custom in the 1st century CE was for persons to wash their hands before eating a meal. This was a ritualistic practice among the scribes and Pharisees. Mr. 7. 1-8. See washing of hands. At banquets or large feasts in the time of Jesus' earthly ministry, couches were placed around 3 sides of a table. This left the 4th side free so that those serving the food could gain access to the table. At times 4 or 5 persons occupied one couch, but usually the number was 3. Those partaking of the meal usually rested on the left elbow, probably on a cushion, with their heads toward the table. Food was normally taken with the right hand. The place of highest importance on a couch was that occupied by the person having no one behind him. To be in the bosom position in relation to someone else reclining at a meal meant being in front of him and would also signify having his favor. Joe 13. 23. The individual having a person in the bosom position could easily carry on a confidential conversation with him. The customary 3 positions on each couch indicated that a person had a high, middle, or low position on the couch. When several couches were used, one having the lower position on the couch farthest from the host had the lowest position at the meal. Compare Mount 23. 6. Lu 14. 7-11. At least on certain festive occasions a large meal or banquet might be under the supervision of a director. J 2. 9 and could feature such entertainment as a music concert o texto e acute miritra longo. Deb 357. The destruction of those standing in opposition to God provides the occasion for a great evening meal. This meal is for the birds that will feed on the dead bodies of those slain. Re 19. 15-18. A very different meal is the great banquet for all the peoples mentioned at Isaiah 25. 6. Marami Middle Archive. A Sidonian city or district that remained to be conquered after Israel's campaign under Joshua's leadership ended. Joes 13. 2. 2 locations have tentatively been suggested. One is the village of Ngeri, about 10 kilometers 6 mi of Sidon. The other is Mogar Jez in Arabic for Caves of Jezan, a district of caves atop the Lebanon range and of Sidon. Measure. See weights and measures. Measuring line. A string, rope, or cord used for measuring. 1 Chi 7. 15, 23. Am 7. 17. Zek 2. 1, 2. Some measuring lines were apparently divided into cubits. 2 Ch 4. 2. The extent of a particular land area was determined by stretching or casting a measuring line upon its surface. Compare Job 38. 4, 5. PS 78. 55. Mic 2. 4, 5. Builders used it, as when laying out a city. 31. 38, 39. Zek 1. 16, and the woodcarver might use it to set the dimensions of an object. Isla 44. 13. On one occasion King David appears to have measured off the vanquished Moabites that were to be put to death from those to be preserved alive. 2 8. 2. Figurative use. In a figurative sense, measuring line denotes a rule, or standard, of action. Isla 28. 10, 13. For example, Jehovah made justice the measuring line when dealing with his unfaithful people. Isla 28. 17. He's applying the same measuring line to Jerusalem as he had to Samaria, pointed to a similar desolation for Jerusalem. 2 Kai 21. 13. Bar 2. 8. He's stretching out the measuring line of emptiness on Edom, likewise betokened destruction, and the use of this measuring line meant apportioning the land to the animals that would begin to dwell in the desolated areas of Edom. Issa 34. 5-17. David regarded his relationship with Jehovah as his portion in life. It was a most satisfying inheritance, prompting him to say, "The measuring lines themselves have fallen for me in pleasant places." PS 16. 5, 6. Compare New 18. 20. The heavenly bodies testify to God's creative activity, and since their silent testimony fills the earth, the psalmist could say respecting them, "Into all the earth their measuring line has gone out." PS 19. 1-4. Row 1. 20. See read. Meat. See flesh. Food. Idols, meats offer to. Bernami middle dot Bernay. A mighty man in David's army, a Hushaltite. 2 23. 27. Apparently he is the same person as the Sivak I mentioned in 2 Samuel 21. 18 and 1 Chronicles 11. 29. 20. 4. 27. 11. Mecharatite me middle dot Sharath middle dot ite. A term pertaining to a person or place named Mechera, to which Heifer, one of David's mighty men, was linked either by descent or former residence. 1 Ch 11. 26, 36. Some scholars suggest that Mecharatite may be a variation of Muakatite, as at 2 Samuel 23. 34. Mekonemi middle dot Konal, from a root meaning firmly establish. A town in southern Judah apparently near Ziklag and large enough to have dependent, or daughter, towns. Any 11. 25, 28. Precise identification is not possible. Most suggested locations are based on textual emendations. Medad. One of the 70 older men of Israel selected to assist Moses during the wilderness trek. While Medad and Eldad had not gone to the tent of meeting with the others, they were among those written down. Hence, when Jehovah took away some of the spirit that was upon Moses, putting it upon each of the 70 older men, these two received it and began acting as prophets in the camp. New 11. 16, 17, 24-26. Though Joshua suggested restraining Medad and Eldad, Moses said, "Are you feeling jealous for me? No, I wish that all of Jehovah's people were prophets, because Jehovah would put his spirit upon them." New 11. 27-29. Medan. One of Abraham's 6 sons by his Otextoi acute Miritra Longo, Medes, Media 358. The tribe of Reuben. Jos 13. 8, 9, 15, 16. It appears that earlier the Amorites had taken Debir from the Moabites. New 21. 25-30. Several centuries later, in a fight against the Ammonites, the army of King David under Joab's command defeated Aramean Syrian mercenary forces in camp before Debir. 1 Ch 19. 6-16. According to the Moabite Stone Line 8, Israel's King Omri c. 951-941 BCE took possession of the land of Medeb Debir. Line 30 of the same monument indicates that Moab's king Mesha rebuilt Debir and other cities in the area. It may be, however, that the Israelites regained dominion over Debir when Jeroboam II c. 844-804 BCE restored the boundary of Israel from the entering in of Hamath clear to the Sea of the Araba. 2 Kai 14. 25. But it would not have been for long, since Isaiah's pronouncement c. 778. A 732 BCE against Moab shows that Debir was by then under the control of the Moabites, and it was foretold that the Moabites would howl over the loss of the city. Issa 15. 1, 2. Medes, Media. The Medes were an Aryan race, hence of Japhetic stock, and evidently descended from Japheth's son Madai. Ge 10. 2. They were closely related to the Persians in race, language, and religion. As a people, the Medes do not begin to appear in biblical history until the 8th century BCE, while the first mention of them in available secular records dates from the time of Assyrian king Shalmaneser III, a contemporary of King Jehu c. 904-877 BCE. Archaeological and other evidence is viewed as indicating their presence on the Iranian plateau from about the middle of the 2nd millennium BCE onward. Geography. Though its boundaries undoubtedly fluctuated, the ancient region of Media basically lay W&S of the Caspian Sea, being separated from the coastland of that sea by the Elburz mountain range. In the NW it evidently reached beyond Lake Amir to the Araxes River valley, while on its W boundary the Zagros Mountains served as a barrier between Media and the land of Assyria and the lowlands of the Tigris. To the E lay a large desert region, and on the S the country of Elam. The land of the Medes was thus mainly a mountainous plateau averaging from 900 to 1,500 meters, 3,000 to 5,000 feet above sea level. A considerable portion of the land is arid steppe, rainfall being generally scanty, though there are several fertile plains that are highly productive. Most of the rivers flow toward the Great Central Desert, where their waters are dissipated into marshes and swamps that dry up in the hot summer and leave salt deposits. Natural barriers made it relatively easy to defend. The western mountain range is the highest, with numerous peaks over 4,270 meters, 14,000 feet high, but the tallest single peak, Mount Demavand 5,771 meters, 18,934 feet, is found in the Elburz range near the Caspian Sea. Principal occupations. Evidently, then as now, most of the people lived in small villages or were nomadic, and stock raising was a principal occupation. Cuneiform texts recounting Assyrian incursions into Media present such a picture and show that the excellent breed of horses raised by the Medes was one of the main prizes sought by the invaders. Herds of sheep, goats, asses, mules, and cows were also pastured on the good grazing grounds of the high valleys. On Assyrian reliefs Medes are sometimes represented as wearing what appear to be sheepskin coats over their tunics and as having high-laced boots. Nises Caspia and CMEDIRAXESRIVELAKAMELBURZMOUNTINS Ekbatana ZGROSMOUNTINSTGR is River Babylon OPHRTES4ER Ilium Persi Engulf Assyria, Medes, Media 359 3 equipment for pastoral work on the plateaus, where the winters brought snow and bitter cold. Archaeological evidence shows that the Medes had capable metalsmiths working in bronze and gold. History. The Medes left virtually no written records. What is known of them is derived from the Bible record, from Assyrian texts, and also from the classical Greek historians. The Medes appear to have been formed into numerous petty kingdoms under tribal chieftains, and the boastful accounts of Assyrian emperors Shamshiadad V, Tiglath-Pileser III, and Sargon II refer to their victories over certain city chieftains of the distant land of the Medes. Following the Assyrian victory over the Kingdom of Israel in 740 BCE, the Israelites were sent into places of exile in Assyria and in the cities of the Medes, some of which were then in vassalage to Assyria. 2 Kai 17. 6. 18. 11. Assyrian efforts to subjugate the insubmissive Medes continued under Assyrian king Esarhaddon, son of Sennacherib and evidently a contemporary of King Manasseh of Judah 716-662 BCE. In one of his inscriptions, Esarhaddon speaks of a district on the border of the Salt Desert which lies in the land of the distant Medes, on the edge of Mount Baikni, the Lapis Lazuli mountain. Powerful chieftains who had not submitted to my yoke. Themselves, together with their people, their riding horses, cattle, sheep, asses and Bactrian camels. An enormous spoil, I carried off to Assyria. My royal tribute and tax I imposed upon them, yearly. Ancient Records of Assyria and Babylonia, by D. D. Luckenbill, 1927, Volume 2, pages 215, 216. According to the Greek historian Herodotus I, 96, the Medes were formed into a united kingdom under a ruler named Deioces. Some modern historians believe Deioces to be the ruler named Diorku in the inscriptions. He was captured and deported to Hamath by Sargon II as a result of one of the Assyrian raids into the region of Media. However, most scholars consider that it was not until the time of Cyaxares or Kyaxares, the grandson of Deioces according to Herodotus I, 102, 103 that the kings of Media began to unite under a particular ruler. Even then they may well have been like the petty kings of Canaan, who at times fought under the direction of a particular king, while still maintaining a considerable measure of independence. Compare Jaws 11. 1-5. The Medes had been growing in strength despite Assyrian incursions, and now came to constitute Assyria's most dangerous rival. When Nabopolassar of Babylon, the father of Nebuchadnezzar, rebelled against Assyria, Cyaxares the Mede allied his forces with the Babylonians. Following the Median capture of Ashur in Nabopolassar's 12th year 634 BCE, Cyaxares called Umakistar in the Babylonian records met with Nabopolassar by the captured city, and they made an entente cordiale. Assyrian and Babylonian Chronicles, by A.K. Grayson, 1975, p. 93. Berosus, known through Polyhistor and Abedian News, both quoted by Eusebius, says that Nabopolassar's son, Nebuchadnezzar, married the daughter of the Median king, her name being Amitis or Amir according to Abedian News. Eusebius, Chronicorum Liber edited by A. Schoen, Berlin, 1875, Col. 29, lines 16-19, Col. 37, lines 5-7. Historians disagree, however, as to whether Amitis was the daughter of Cyaxares or of his son Astyages. With Babylonians defeat Assyria. After further battles against the Assyrians, finally in the 14th year of Nabopolassar 632 BCE, the combined forces of the Medes and the Babylonians conquered Nineveh. Zep 2. 13. Assyrian resistance was transferred to Haran, some 360 kilometers 225 meter the W, but though Assyria received assistance from Egypt, the effort to continue Assyrian rule was ineffectual and the Assyrian Empire was split up between the Medes and the Babylonians. Na 2. 8-13. 3. 18, 19. The Medes appear to have taken the northern Otextoi acute Muritra Longo, Mediator 360 Median capital. Ancient Near Eastern Texts, edited by J. Pritchard, 1974, p. 305. From this point forward Media merges with Persia to form the Medo-Persian Empire. Thus, the vision received by the prophet Daniel aptly likened the dual power of Medo-Persia to a two-horned ram, the taller of the two horns being the one that came up afterward, representing the ascendancy of the Persians in their dominance of the empire for the remainder of its existence. Diet 3:20. The evidence is, however, that Cyrus gave positions of power and authority to the Medes so that they continue to maintain a considerable measure of prominence within his government. Thus, the prophet Daniel interpreted to King Belshazzar the cryptic writing on the wall as predicting the division of the Babylonian Empire and its being given to the Medes and the Persians, and elsewhere in the book of Daniel the Medes continue to be listed first in the phrase the law of the Medes and the Persians. Da 5. 28. 6. 8, 12, 15. In the following century the book of Esther as 1. 3, 14, 18, 19 reverses the order, with one exception as 10. 2 in which the Medes are listed as preceding the Persians historically. With Persians defeat Babylon. In the 8th century BCE the prophet Isaiah had foretold that Jehovah would arouse against Babylon the Medes, who account silver itself as nothing and who, as respects gold, take no delight in it. And their bows will dash even young men to pieces. Esther 13. 17-19. 21. 2. The term Medes here may well include the Persians, even as the classical Greek historians commonly used the term to embrace both Medes and Persians. Their disdaining silver and gold evidently indicates that in Babylon's case conquest was the prime motive with them rather than spoil, so that no bribe or offer of tribute would buy them off from their determined purpose. The Medes, like the Persians, used the bow as a principal weapon. The wooden bows, though sometimes mounted with bronze or copper, compare PS 18. 34, likely dashed the young men of Babylon to pieces by the hail of arrows, individually polished so as to penetrate even deeper. Jer 51. 11. It may be noted that Jeremiah 51. 11, 28 makes reference to the kings of Media as among those attacking Babylon, the plural perhaps indicating that even under Cyrus, a subordinate Median king or kings may have continued to exist, a situation by no means incompatible with ancient practice. Compare also Jer 25. 25. Thus, too, we find that when Babylon was captured by the combined forces of Medes, Persians, Elamites, and other neighboring tribes, it was a Mede named Darius who was made king over the kingdom of the Chaldeans, evidently as an appointee of King Cyrus the Persian. Dar 5. 31. 9. 1. See Darius number 1. Conquered by Alexander the Great. In the time of King Ahasuerus believed to be Xerxes I, reference was still made to the military force of Persia and Media. The king's privy council was formed of 7 princes of Persia and Media, and the laws were still known as the laws of Persia and Media. As 1. 3, 14, 19 In 334 BCE Alexander the Great won his first decisive victories over the Persian forces, and in 330 BCE he occupied Media. Following his death, the southern part of Media came to form part of the Seleucid Empire, while the northern part became an independent kingdom. Though it was dominated variously by the Parthians and by the Seleucid Empire, Greek geographer Strabo indicated that a Median dynasty continued in the 1st century CE. Geography, 11, 13, 1 At Jerusalem, Medes along with Parthians, Elamites, and persons of other nationalities were present at Pentecost in the year 33 CE. Since they are spoken of as Jews, reverent men, from every nation, they may have been descendants of those Jews exiled to cities of the Medes following the Assyrian conquest of Israel, or perhaps some were proselytes to the Jewish Otextoi Acute Muritra Longo. Mediator 361 Covenant exists, the death of that which has ratified it is necessary to be produced. Et for where a covenant is, there is a necessity for the death of that which establisheth the covenant. The New Testament in an improved version. The literal rendering as set forth in interlinear translations of the Greek text is as follows. Where for covenant, death necessity to be born of the one having made for self-covenant. Job 9. 16. In for where there is a covenant, the death there is necessity to be offered of the one making covenant. The Interlinear Greek-English New Testament, translated by Alfred Marshall. The rendering of the ke as covenant expresses correctly the writer's meaning. The renderings testament and will, found in many versions, are inconsistent with the use of the term in the Greek Septuagint as well as in many places in the Christian Greek scriptures. Boo 1. 72. Act 3. 25. 7. 8. Row 9. 4. 11. 27. Job 8. 6-10. 12. 24 Will and Testament also are out of harmony with what Paul is talking about, as he is speaking of the law covenant and the new covenant in the context. Neither the law covenant nor the new covenant was a will. At Hebrews 9. 16 the Apostle Paul was evidently speaking of covenants between God and man, not man and man as requiring sacrifices. And it may be noted that, particularly with the Hebrews, approaches to God and covenants with God were regularly based on sacrifices, the victims sacrificed sometimes being cut in pieces on the occasion of entering a covenant. It is quite obvious that the law covenant and the new covenant required the shedding of blood in order to go into operation or to be effective before God. Otherwise God would not have recognized them as valid, nor dealt with the persons involved on the basis of a covenant relationship. Job 9. 17 For the validation of the law covenant, the sacrifice used was that of animals, bulls and goats, these taking the place of Moses, the mediator. Job 9. 19 For validating the new covenant, the sacrifice was the human life of Jesus Christ. Luke 22. 20. CNW Appendix, p. 1584. The mediator of the law covenant. Moses was the mediator of the law covenant between Jehovah God and the nation of Israel. Jehovah spoke with him mouth to mouth. New 12. 8, although actually Jehovah's angel spoke representatively for God. Acts 7. 38. 3. 19. Heb 2. 2 Moses was an intermediary spokesman for Jehovah to Israel. Acts 19. 3, 7, 9. 24. 9-18 As mediator he was entrusted with all Jehovah's house. New 12. 7 In mediating the law covenant he helped the nation of Israel to keep the covenant and to receive its benefits. Validation of the law covenant. The Apostle Paul says, Now there is no mediator where only one person is concerned, but God is only one. 3. 20 In the law covenant God was one party. The nation of Israel was the other party. Because of their sinful condition, the Israelites were unable to approach God in a covenant. They needed a mediator. Their weakness was demonstrated in their request to Moses. You speak with us, and let us listen. But let not God speak with us for fear we may die. Acts 20. 19. Job 12. 18-20 Accordingly, Jehovah mercifully constituted Moses mediator of the law covenant and arranged for animals to be sacrificed to validate the covenant. Moses, of course, was also imperfect and sinful. However, he enjoyed a favorable standing with God, even as Abraham had earlier. Job 11. 23-28. See declare righteous how counted righteous. On the occasion of the inauguration of the covenant, Moses officiated, directing the sacrifice of the animals. Then he sprinkled their blood on the scroll or the book of the covenant. He read the book to the people, setting forth the terms, and the people responded by agreeing to obey. Moses then sprinkled them, doubtless the representative older men, with the blood, saying, Here is the blood of the covenant that otextoi acute miritra longo, mediator 362 covenant. He acted in his official capacity as mediator. Other mediatorial work. A body of more than 600 laws, including the priestly statutes, was given to Israel through Moses. By the power of God, Moses performed many miracles in behalf of the people. He interceded for them, pleading with Jehovah to spare them for Jehovah's name's sake. Acts 32. 7-14. New 14. 11-20. 16. 20-22. 21. 7. 9. 18-20, 25-29. 10. 8-11 Moses had the interests of Jehovah's name and also the people's interest at heart, even above his concern for his own welfare. Acts 32. 30-33. New 11. 26-29. 12. 9-13. Parallels in mediatorships. With respect to those brought into the new covenant, we find a situation similar to that of ancient Israel. Christians are also sinners. Since the blood of animals cannot actually remove sins. Job 10. 4. A better sacrifice is necessary. Jesus Christ is that better sacrifice. Job 10. 5-10 The writer of Hebrews expresses the matter in this way. After mentioning the sacrifices offered under the law, he says, How much more will the blood of the Christ cleanse our consciences from dead works, that we may render sacred service to the living God? So that is why he is a mediator of a new covenant, in order that, because a death has occurred for their release by ransom from the transgressions under the former covenant, the ones who have been called might receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. For where there is a covenant, the death of the human covenant needs to be furnished. For a covenant is valid over dead victims, since it is not in force at any time while the human covenanter is living. Job 9. 11-17. Paul goes on to point out that the former covenant was not inaugurated without blood. Moses, in negotiating it, saw that the sacrifices were made and sprinkled the blood on the book of the covenant. Job 9. 18-28 Likewise Jesus Christ, God's mediator for the new covenant, after his sacrifice, appeared before Jehovah God with the value of his blood. Another likeness is that the law covenant was made with a nation, not with individuals. Acts 24. 7, 8, and so, too, the new covenant is made with God's holy nation, the Israel of God. 1 Peter 2. 9. G 6. 15, 16. Those for whom Christ is mediator. The Apostle Paul declares that there is one mediator between God and men, a man, Christ Jesus, who gave himself a corresponding ransom for all. For both Jews and Gentiles. 1 T 2. 5, 6 He mediates the new covenant between God and those taken into the new covenant, the congregation of spiritual Israel. Job 8. 10-13. 12. 24. F5. 25-27 Christ became mediator in order that the ones called might receive the promise of the everlasting inheritance. Heb 9. 15. He assists, not the angels, but Abraham's seed. Heb 2. 16 He assists those who are to be brought into the new covenant to be adopted into Jehovah's household of sons. These eventually will be in heaven as Christ's brothers, becoming a part with him of the seed of Abraham. Row 8. 15-17, 23-25. Year 3. 29 He has transmitted to them the promised Holy Spirit, with which Spirit they are sealed and are given a token of what is to come, their heavenly inheritance. 2 Co 5. 5. F1. 13, 14 The total number of those who are finally and permanently sealed is revealed in Revelation 7. 4-8 as 144,000. Inauguration of the New Covenant. After Jesus died and was resurrected, he entered into heaven to appear before the person of God to present his offering, the benefits of which go first to those taken into the New Covenant. Heb 9. 24 He acted both as high priest and mediator. In harmony with the pattern followed at the inauguration of the Law Covenant, Jesus Christ presented the value of his sacrifice before God in heaven even as Moses sprinkled the blood on the book of the law, for God was not personally present there. Then, on Pentecost Day, 33 CE Jesus poured out the Holy Spirit from God on no textoi acute miritra longo. Meditation 363 The primary seed of 3. 16, 29, being brought in as associate members of the seed. Being made kings and priests by reason of the new covenant that he mediated, they will share in administering the blessings of Jesus' sacrifice and of his kingdom rule to all the nations of the earth. Christ's mediatorship, having accomplished its purpose by bringing the Israel of God into this position, thus results in benefits and blessings to all mankind. Ge 6. 16. Ge 22. 17, 18. There are, thus, others not of the 144,000 sealed ones who also pray to Jehovah God in the name of Christ, putting faith in the merit of his ransom sacrifice. This sacrifice is not only for those for whom Jesus mediates the new covenant, but also for all mankind expressing faith in Christ. 1 Joe 2. To these not in the new covenant also appreciate that there is not another name under heaven that has been given among men by which we must get saved. Act 4. 12 They, too, look to Jesus Christ as their great heavenly high priest, through whom they can approach God and through whose ministration they can get forgiveness of sin. Heb 4. 14-16 Revelation 21. 22-24 points out that the nations will walk in the light of New Jerusalem, where Jehovah God is the light and the Lamb Jesus Christ is the lamp. Meditation. The kind of deep, concentrated thinking in which a person seriously reflects on past experiences, ponders and muses over current matters, or thoughtfully contemplates possible future events. In order to meditate properly, a person needs to be free from distractions, alone with his thoughts, so to speak. Isaac, for example, went out walking alone in the early evening to meditate, possibly about his coming marriage to Rebekah. Ge 24. 63 It was during the solitude of the night watches that the psalmist meditated on the greatness of his grand Creator. PS 63. 6 The meditations of the heart should be focused on beneficial things, on Jehovah's splendor and activities, on things pleasing to him. PS 19. 14. 49. 3. 77. 12. 143. 5. PHP 4. 8. And not on the devices of the wicked. PR 24. 1, 2. By engaging in profitable meditation, one will not be inclined to give foolish answers. He will seriously think out these matters of importance, and as a result, the answers given will be from the heart and will not be something to regret later on. PR 15. 28. When Joshua was appointed as the overseer of the nation of Israel, he was instructed to make a copy of Jehovah's law, and he was told as rendered in many Bible versions to meditate thereon day and night. Jos 1. 8. As, KJ, JB, RS The Hebrew word here for meditate is hamidul.gar. It basically means utter inarticulate sounds and is rendered moan, growl, coo, and mutter. Issa 16. 7. 31. 4. 38. 14. 59. 3 Middle.Ga also has the meanings utter in an undertone and meditate. PS 35. 28. PR 15. 28 The New World Translation appropriately renders the Hebrew term Middle.Ga, appearing in Joshua 1. 8, you must in an undertone read. See also PS 1. 2. Reading in an undertone would impress more indelibly on the mind the material on which one was meditating. Gesenius's Hebrew and Chaldee Lexicon translated by S. Tregels, 1901, p. 215 says of Middle.Ga. Properly to speak with oneself, murmuring and in a low voice, as is often done by those who are musing. Compare PS 35. 28. 37. 30. 71. 24. Issa 8. 19. 33. 18. The Apostle Paul told Timothy that he should ponder over or be meditating on his conduct, ministry, and teaching. As an overseer, Timothy had to be unusually careful that he taught sound doctrine and that his way of life was exemplary. 1 Tim 4. 15. Wrong meditation. After the apostles Peter and John has been arrested by the captain of the temple and the Jewish rulers had threatened them and charged them not to teach further on the basis of Jesus' name, the apostles returned to the other disciples. These prayed to God, referring to David's O texto acute miritra longo, meekness 364. Jesus said to those hating him, why are you reasoning these things in your hearts? Mr. 2. 8 Of all who would suppress the truth in an unrighteous way, the Apostle Paul says, they became empty-headed in their reasonings and their unintelligent heart became darkened. Such meditation proves fatal to those indulging in it. Row 1. 18, 21. Meekness. A mildness of temper, without haughtiness or vanity. The mental disposition that enables one to endure injury with patience and without irritation, resentment, or vindictive retaliation. It is a close companion of and seldom found separate from such other virtues as humility, lowliness of mind, and gentleness. See humility. Mildness. The Hebrew word translated meek middle.na comes from the root middle.na, which means afflict, humble, humiliate. In the Bible, meekness is emphasized as one's mental attitude first of all toward God, then towards fellow creatures. For example, it is written, the meek ones will certainly increase their rejoicing in Jehovah himself. Issa 29. 19 Meek persons are teachable. Jehovah will teach the meek ones his way. PS 25. 9. And they are willing to endure discipline from the hand of God, though such is grievous at the time. Hope 12. 4-11 Meekness causes persons to wait upon Jehovah to right the wrongs and injuries unjustly suffered, instead of becoming heated up with anger. PS 37. 8-11 Such persons are not disappointed, for Jehovah's appointed one, the twig out of the stump of Jesse, will give reproof in righteousness in behalf of the meek ones of the earth. Issa 11. 1-4. Moses. Moses was just such a man, by far the meekest of all the men who were upon the surface of the ground, one who could take criticism without resentment. New 12. 3 The occasion of this comment on his meekness was the time when Miriam and Aaron murmured against Moses. In reality, it was an uncalled for complaint against Jehovah and one that he quickly took note of and reproved. New 12. 1-15. Some commentators charge that for Moses to record this reference to his own meekness was unjustified self-praise. Other critics claim the statement was added later by someone else, while still others offer this as evidence that Moses did not write the Pentateuch after all. However, Cook's commentary says concerning these words, when we regard them as uttered by Moses not proprio motu of his own initiative, but under the direction of the Holy Spirit which was upon him cf. 11. 17. They exhibit a certain objectivity, which is a witness at once to their genuineness and also to their inspiration. There is about these words, as also about the passages in which Moses no less unequivocally records his own faults cf. XX 12 SQQ X 4 24 SQQ Deut I 37 The simplicity of one who bear witness of himself, but not to himself cf. St. Matt 11 28 29. The words are inserted to explain how it was that Moses took no steps to vindicate himself, and why consequently the Lord so promptly intervened. Jesus Christ. Jesus demonstrated meekness by enduring all manner of personal injury without a word of complaint, even allowing himself to be led to the slaughter as a lamb without opening his mouth in protest. PHP 2 5-8 Hope 12 2 Ac 8 32-35 Isra 53 7 This greater than Moses also recommended himself to others as a meek or mild-tempered person. Mount 11 28, 29, as, KJ, ed, NW, Rose Isaiah 61. 1 Foretold, he was anointed with Jehovah's Spirit to tell good news to the meek ones. After reading this prophecy in the synagogue of his hometown of Nazareth, Jesus declared, "Today this scripture that you just heard is fulfilled." 4 16-21 In thus sending his beloved Son to teach the meek concerning salvation, God was indeed showing them very special favor. PS 149 4 PR 3 34 Brings benefits. The invitation expressed by the prophet Zephaniah is still extended to meek persons of the earth. Seek Jehovah, all you meek. Go text to acute miritra longo, Megiddo 365 above the valley below. Pictures and Map, Volume 1, p. 953. Strategic. Situated in this strategic spot overlooking and dominating the fertile western section of the Jezreel Valley Plain of Esdraelon, also known as the Valley Plain of Megiddo. 2 ch 35. 22. Zek 12. 11. It easily controlled the major trade and military routes that intersected there. Both biblical history and secular records tell how the armies of many nations fought decisive battles around Megiddo, because of its commanding position. Near this site by the waters of Megiddo, Judge Barak defeated Jabin's mighty forces under Sisera, which included 900 chariots outfitted with iron scythes. JG 4. 7, 13-16. 5. 19 It was at Megiddo that King Ahaziah of Judah died after being mortally wounded near Ibleam on orders of Jehu. 2 Chi 9. 27 At Megiddo King Josiah of Judah was mortally wounded when he intercepted the Egyptian army under Pharaoh Necho that was on its way to help the Assyrians at the river Euphrates. 2 Chi 23. 29, 30. 2 ch 35. 22. At various times during its long history, as archaeological diggings show, Megiddo was heavily fortified. Ruins have been uncovered showing that it once had walls between 4 and 5 meters, 13 and 16 feet thick, which were later increased to more than 7.5 meters, 25 feet thick, sections of which were still over 3.3 meters, 11 feet high when found. History. The first mention of Megiddo lists its king among the 31 that Joshua defeated in the initial conquest of the Promised Land. Jos 12. 7, 8, 21, 24 When the land was apportioned, Megiddo, together with its dependent towns, became an enclave city belonging to the tribe of Manasseh, though it was situated in the territory of Issachar. Jos 17. 11. 1 ch 7. 29 However, during the period of the Judges, Manasseh was not able to drive the Canaanites out of this stronghold. At best, when Israel became strong, the inhabitants of this city were regimented for forced labor. JG 1. 27, 28. Under David's reign, when the boundaries of the kingdom were extended to their full limits, all Canaanite elements within the Promised Land were subjugated, including Megiddo. This allowed Solomon to include Megiddo in the fifth named district set up to supply the royal household with food 1 month out of the year. 1 Chi 4. 7, 8, 12. Solomon also fortified Megiddo, and it may have become one of his chariot cities where some of his 12,000 steeds were stabled. 1 Chi 9. 15-19. 10. 26 At Megiddo, archaeologists have found very extensive remains of what some scholars, but not all, think were stables capable of accommodating upwards of 450 horses. At first these structures were credited to Solomon's time, but many later archaeologists dated them to a later period, perhaps the time of Ahab. Solomonic Gate at Megiddo, like the ones found at Hazor and Jezer, Mehetabel 366. Zechariah's Prophecy 12:11 speaks of a great wailing that occurred in the valley plain of Megiddo, which may be a reference to the lamentation over King Josiah, who was killed there in battle. 2 Kai 23. 29, 30 There is a slight difference in the Hebrew spelling of Megiddo here in the book of Zechariah. Instead of the conventional Hebrew spelling Megid-middle.u, it is Megid-middle.on, a prolonged form similar to that found at Revelation 16. 16. Sihar. Midgeddon. Mehetabel me middle.bel probably, God does good. 1. Daughter of the woman Matred and wife of Edomite King Hadad. GE 36. 31, 39. 1 ch1. 50. 2. Ancestor probably the grandfather of the Shemaiah hired by Tobiah and Sanballat to try to induce Nehemiah to sin out of fear. NE 6. 10-14. Mehidami middle.Hidar. Ancestor of a family of Nethinim whose sons or descendants returned to Judah from Babylonian exile with Zerubbabel in 537 BCE as 2. 1, 2, 43, 52. NE 7. 54. Mahamiho possibly, Price. A man of the tribe of Judah who was the son of Chub Caleb and father of Eshton. 1 ch4. 1, 11. Mealatite me middle.Holath middle.ite of belonging to Abel Meholah. The designation for Adriel son-in-law of Saul and his father Barzillai. 1 18. 19. 2 21. 8 It evidently denotes that they were from the town of Abel Meholah. See Abel Meholah. Mehuel me middle.Huja middle.El struck by God. Great-grandson of Cain. Mehuel was the father of Methushael and the grandfather of Lamech, not the Lamech descended from Seth. GE 4. 17, 18. Mehuman me middle.Human. One of the court officials of Persian king Ahasuerus I, who ruled in the days of Mordecai and Esther. Mehuman was named first among the 7 court officials ordered by Ahasuerus to bring Queen Vashti into his presence. As 1. 10, 11. Mejarkin waters of the Jarkin. Some scholars believe that Mejarkin in the territory of Danjos 19. 40, 41, 46 is the Nara Elozhani Haliarkin, which enters the Mediterranean Sea about 6 kilometers 3.5 mi of Joppa. Its headwaters, among the largest springs in Palestine, surface about 20 kilometers 12 mi inland near the suggested site of Afekno. 3. Another view is that the original Hebrew text, like the Greek Septuagint, may have reddened on the west or, on the Sea Jarkin. Tel Kazala, situated within the limits of Tel Aviv Joppa, has been presented as a possible identification for Jarkin. Malay Shumal middle.Tiaja has provided escape. A Gibeonite who assisted in repairing part of Jerusalem's wall under Nehemiah's supervision in 455 BCE NE 3. 7. Melchi Malchi from Heb. Meaning my king. The name of 2 maternal ancestors of Jesus Christ. 1. The son or descendant of Adi and father or ancestor of Neri. Luke 3. 27, 28. 2. The son or descendant of Janai and father or ancestor of Levi. Luke 3. 23, 24. Melchizedek Mal middle.Gizi king of righteousness. King of ancient Salem and priest of the Most High God, Jehovah. GE 14. 18, 22 Here's the first priest mentioned in the scriptures. He occupied that position sometime prior to 1933 BCE, being the king of Salem, which means peace. Melchizedek is identified by the Apostle Paul as king of peace and, on the basis of his name, as king of righteousness. Heb 7. 1, to ancient Salem is understood to have been the nucleus of the later city of Jerusalem, and its name was incorporated in that of Jerusalem, which is sometimes referred to as Salem. PS 76. 2. After Abraham defeated Chedorlaomer and his confederate kings, the patriarch came to the lower plain of Shava, or the king's low plain. There Melchizedek brought out bread and wine and blessed Abraham, saying, Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, producer of heaven and earth. And blessed be the Most High God, who has delivered your oppressors into your hand. At that Abraham gave the king priest a tenth of everything, that is, o textoi acute miritra longo, Malak 367 direct appointment. Jehovah evidently appointed Melchizedek to be a priest. In discussing Jesus' status as the great high priest, Paul showed that a man does not take the honor of his own accord, but only when he is called by God, just as Aaron also was. He also explained that the Christ did not glorify himself by becoming a high priest, but was glorified by him who spoke with reference to him. You are my son. Today, I have become your father, and the apostle next applies the prophetic words of Psalm 110. For to Jesus Christ. Heb 5. 1, 4-6. Receive tithes from Levi. Melchizedek's priestly status was not linked with the priesthood of Israel, and as the scriptures point out, it was higher than the Aaronic priesthood. One factor indicating this is the deference accorded to Melchizedek by Abraham, the forefather of the entire nation of Israel, including the priestly tribe of Levi. Abraham, Jehovah's friend, who became the father of all those having faith. Just 2. 23. Row 4. 11, gave a tenth, or a tithe, to this priest of the Most High God. Paul shows that the Levites collected tithes from their brothers, who also issued from the loins of Abraham. However, he points out that Melchizedek, who did not trace his genealogy from them, took tithes from Abraham, and through Abraham even Levi, who receives tithes, has paid tithes, for he was still in the loins of his forefather when Melchizedek met him. Thus, though the Levitical priests received tithes from the people of Israel, they, as represented in their ancestor Abraham, paid tithes to Melchizedek. Furthermore, the superiority of Melchizedek's priesthood is shown in that he blessed Abraham, Paul pointing out that the less is blessed by the greater. Such factors are among those making Melchizedek a suitable type of the great high priest Jesus Christ. Heb 7. 4-10. No predecessors or successors. Paul clearly indicates that perfection was unattainable through the Levitical priesthood, thus necessitating the appearance of a priest according to the manner of Melchizedek. He points out that Christ sprang from Judah, a non-priestly tribe, but, citing Jesus' similarity to Melchizedek, shows that he became a priest, not according to the law of a commandment depending upon the flesh, but according to the power of an indestructible life. Aaron and his sons became priests without an oath, but the priesthood conferred on Christ was ordained by an oath of Jehovah. Also, whereas the Levitical priests kept dying and needed to have successors, the resurrected Jesus Christ, because of continuing alive forever, has his priesthood without any successors and, therefore, is able to save completely those who are approaching God through him, because he is always alive to plead for them. Heb 7. 11-25. How was it true that Melchizedek had neither beginning of days nor end of life? Paul isolated an outstanding fact respecting Melchizedek, in saying of him, in being fatherless, motherless, without genealogy, having neither a beginning of days nor an end of life, but having been made like the Son of God, he remains a priest perpetually. Heb 7. 3. Like other humans, Melchizedek was born and he died. However, the names of his father and mother are not furnished, his ancestry and posterity are not disclosed, and the scriptures contain no information about the beginning of his days or the end of his life. Thus, Melchizedek could fittingly foreshadow Jesus Christ, who has an unending priesthood. As Melchizedek had no recorded predecessor or successor in his priesthood, so too Christ was preceded by no high priest similar to himself, and the Bible shows that none will ever succeed him. Furthermore, although o textoi acute miritra longo, mean 368 meme. Final. The 13th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It is one of the 5 Hebrew letters that have a different form when used as the final letter of a word. In the Hebrew, it appears as the initial letter in each of the 8 verses in Psalm 119. 97-104. See Hebrew, 2. Memorial. See Lord's evening meal. Memorial tomb. A burial place in which the remains of a deceased person were placed with the hope that he would be remembered, especially by God. Concerning the Greek words used to refer to a burial place or tomb, A.T.